Tamara will soon be joining. Well, ladies, as we are getting organized here, I want to thank you for taking time out of your Saturday to be a part of this event, and then all of the prep that we did to get ready for it. I do not take it for granted. Thank you so much for being here. I want to start with a question that helps our audience get to know you as a person. And again, part of the goal here is to help us all see, authors are regular people, right? So I want to start with you, Denise, and I want you to share with our audience. Let's go back in time a little bit. When you were a kid, what was your favorite book?
Okay, so when you prepped me with this question, I just chuckled because the only book that could come to mind for me was Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And I know that sounds really, really crazy, but it was my favorite book mainly because it was so different from my reality. I mean, I was an inner city kid, and the thought of this little girl running through the woods and finding this home and having the courage and confidence to go in and experience different things, it just unleashed my imagination. So even as an adult, I reflect on that because reading that book was so different than what I knew, and it exposed me to something completely out of my norm. And just like many books do, it took me to a place that created a different reality for me. And so I just really loved Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And I tried to think of something a little bit more rich than that, initial fairy tale, but that's the long lasting one that really sticks out.
Well, you know what, Denise, I don't think, and I want to share this with the audience too, sometimes we feel like we need to have a really prolific answer, right? But I love your answer because it's honest and it highlights the power of books, right? Is when you read a book, you are able to mentally kind of transport yourself to a different place and imagine yourself in a different reality than what you currently have. So those of you that have a desire to write a book, your book has that same power. You're going to help people see themselves in a future place, and people want that. We all have goals, we all have dreams, and we just want someone to come alongside us and help us to see that we can do it. Denise, what about you? What's your current favorite read?
Yeah, so most of my reading, I try to commit the best time of my day to that type of development. And for me, reading is primarily a way of edification for myself. And so the book that I recently added to my regimen, if I could call it that, is the Maximized Life Journey. And that's by, he was Dr. Ivy Hilliard, but I think he's Apostle Ivy Hilliard now. And the book is definitely along the lines as the other ladies around that development. He has some really great books out there as well, just like some of the other people mentioned. But what I really love about this book is it's taking you through a very deliberate process about your faith and how to begin to exercise your faith and develop your faith and your confidence. And it does it over what I like, which is bite-sized chunks. So for me, I'm kind of like Tamara. I didn't read a lot. Like I told you before, Jet magazine was about the only magazine I could read. That's because the articles was this big. And so what I love about books that kind of break things down is I don't feel like I have to consume it all right away. And it puts it in formidable chunks. And so this particular book is a 52-day journey. And so each day he's unpacking more and more of the content to help you really develop that confidence and begin to walk boldly in faith. And so that's the one that I recently added, and I'm enjoying it. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Also a fan of Apostle Hilliard. Now let's switch a little bit from writing and let's talk about what you like to do outside of writing. So Denise, I'm going to go back to you when you are not, I know you have a lot on your plate as a wife and you're running a business and all these things, but when you're not writing outside of those things, what do you like to do?
So my most favorite thing is traveling. And I think I enjoy traveling just because you get to experience so many different cultures and so many different places. And it really helps to take your thoughts and realize that what you see every day, what you experience every day, there's such a big world out there and there's so much happening for us to consume and enjoy. And so obviously there's a lot of restrictions around traveling right now. So I'm in a little bit of a lull when it comes to that. Outside of that, I'd probably say my second and third pastime is retail therapy. That's probably not new to anybody on here. And then finally, I have learned to embrace, like, you know, spa days and massages and things like that to help me relax. Because I find that when you live in this vein of drama or stress, it's overwhelming and it begins to impact you. It impacts your confidence. It impacts your ability to really accomplish the things that you want to do. So my family knows my mantra is I want drama free, right? I'm just trying to keep the drama to a minimum so that we can begin to function in a place of love. And so for me, the thing I love the most is traveling. And I'm hopeful that we can get back on the airways again here soon.
Yeah. I think everybody is. I'd love to hear as you guys are typing what kind of book you want to write. What's the first place you want to go when travel restrictions are lifted and you feel comfortable traveling? Because I realize that there's a comfort level too. Where is the first place you want to go? And Denise, what do you think your answer is? Where would be the first place you want to get on a plane and go?
I have hope alive still for this trip I have planned in August to Cabo. I'm still keeping hope alive Cabo. That I'll be able to make that trip. And so outside of that, we do have plans in December to go to Jamaica. I'm hopeful for that as well. So I just enjoy traveling. And when I get there, I just really like to take it all in, you know, just as much as I can and take in from the weather, the culture, the experience, the food, all that kind of stuff. But I'm hopeful that August will still come through for me.
Yes, hopefully it will still come through. Well, Denise, I'm going to go to you next. And I recognize that I missed you when I was asking about what inspired you to take the step to write your book. So I want you to talk about that. I want you to tell us a little bit about what you want readers to take away from the book, and then we'll have you share an excerpt as well.
All right. Yeah, I can bundle it all together. So for me, my journey was a little bit introspective, and it turned into really aligning with my purpose and what now is a passion for me. So over the fall, I'll say I had this journey of silence where I had just had a medical procedure. I was home most of the time by myself. And so it was just completely quiet here. And oddly enough, we were at the point where my husband and I were about to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary. And so I'm trying to put together some type of celebration for us. And I'm tapping into my circle, right? And I'm excited, but all my girlfriends are like, well, I don't know if I'm gonna make it, you know, and that was just like this resonating theme. I'm happy for you, but I don't know if I'm gonna make it. I'm happy for you, but I don't know if I'm gonna make it. And so I just had a point of reflection and like, how did we get here? You know, it's not that it's been easy. Marriage takes work. And I just really recollected back to a lot of my experiences. I felt alone in some things. I felt many times like I wanted to give up, but I managed to hang in there. And I could really focus back to a time where there was a couple who spent some very intentional time with us to feed into us and to encourage us. And so what really started off as me reaching out to my inner circle and saying, hey, I want to make myself available. It's not that I have all the answers, but I think we can grow stronger together. And I've invited a few women over for lunch, and I said, let me just start this little group for us to stay connected. And that was back in November. And I oftentimes will pour out through writing into that group, right? And it has organically grown over to 600 people that are now in the group. And me just continuing to share, continue to encourage with the theme in a mission to be focused on helping wives thrive, right? And so the book that I've written was completely inspired from that. I would devote a lot of times just sharing myself. It's interesting because someone has even made a comment that they could tell this book is a piece of me being shared openly and transparently with women to talk about what we feel in relationships. And it's real talk, right? It's not this glossed over thing. It's the real situations that you deal with. And so really my passion came, just like the other women here, came from wanting to be able to impart something to be a help to someone else. So I formed what is called the First Wives Club. And the First Wives Club is really about asserting our position as primary and making sure that we bring ourselves to the forefront. You don't have to be the first lady. You don't have to be his first wife. You are just asserting your primary role as a part of the club. And so the book is a compilation. I have a picture of the book, but the book is a compilation of all of these things that I've imparted as a part of that group to try to help inspire and encourage. Now, the byproduct of all of this is I had to process it, right? So in order for me to really come cleanly out and be able to help focus on development and growth, I had to process it. And that's why it is a piece of me that is being shared. And like I said, it's not that I have the answers. I'm just willing to be a vessel to say, hey, let's talk about some things I know you're dealing with. And you're not alone, right? Because many people, they feel as if they're alone. They feel as if they have nowhere to turn to, and there's no one cheering them on to say, hey, hang in there. I know it's difficult. I know sometimes the conversations get tough. I know sometimes your feelings are raging, and I know sometimes you don't want to hang in there, but do it anyway, right? You know, the mission, the purpose is to grow old together, and that is what we focus on trying to deliver in the context of the First Wives Club group. And so this has taken on something that I can tell you has only been divinely inspired. I am not an avid reader. I enjoy prolifically writing because I can express myself well there. But it is a divine calling, if you will, to be able to share and impart in this way. And so the journey has been one that has been so quick, beyond anything that I ever expected or imagined. And the need is apparent that people want support, people want their marriages to work. And sometimes they just need to have somebody say, I hear you, girl, right? You know, I hear you, I'm with you. And so the way the book is constructed, it's a journey. It's a 30-day journey. In each day, you have a reading, you have a point of reflection, you have a point of affirmation, and you set relationship goals. And there's a complimentary offering that I have that comes alongside where I partner with you through that journey to encourage you over that 30-day window. And back to what Tamara said and Dr. Peacock said, my whole goal in this is to help somebody, right? It's to help one person. And when I start seeing so many different people who say they can relate to the messages and so many different people saying they can relate to the writings, then it makes everything that I had to reprocess and deal with to get to this point worth it. So the reading I selected, it's day 9. Now, you know, I got to put some eyes on so I can see. But the reading I selected is day 9. And as I mentioned, there's affirmation that follows this reading, but let me share with you. It says, who are you? It's the writing for this day. It says, I am motivated, beautiful, strong, deserving, blessed, empowered, prosperous, creating, intelligent, bold, growing, learning, living, inventing, unstoppable, inspired, achieving. The thing that matters beyond anything is what we think about ourselves. Everything starts there and is viewed through that lens. I must work on my esteem daily because of my baggage that often makes me feel unworthy, not pretty, and less valued. I found that I wasn't easy to love because I didn't really feel I deserved to be loved despite my husband's efforts. Those mean words from my family, friends, and foes alike did indeed hurt me. Even worse, I sometimes say mean things about me to me. Overcoming painful words isn't easy because whatever gets to you first, you believe, even if it's a lie. Then we're faced trying to uproot the lie with the truth, which is hard. Stinking thinking, I call it. Therefore, I renew my mind about me. Every day, I must tell myself that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I must tell myself that I deserve what I have and more. I tell myself I am lovable. It's imperative that I tell myself of my good so that I can believe the truth about me. The name First Wives Club is not to imply that you must be his first wife. You are a wife with a desire for your marriage. First Wives Club is a reminder of our priority and position as wives. We matter most, and we often fade behind other valid, important things and reasons. It's time that we assert who we are in our role and rise strong for our marriage. We are worthy, pretty, and valuable. You were selected to be the one. In fact, your husband made the best choice of his life when he chose you. We must honor ourselves in our marriage by bringing our best selves to our relationship and taking our position as first. And so that's the reading for that day. And then the reader goes on, there's an affirmation for them to speak out loud, because I think that's a powerful tool. I think when you say the words and your ears hear the words, they sink and hold better with you. And then they go on and write a reflection and establish a relationship goal. And the reason why I think doing this in the morning is impactful, and for those that I coach through this process, it resonates with them all day long. And so each day covers a different perspective. Some of them are relationship based, but what I have found when it comes to marriage in any relationship, it's about your growth and your development. And that's why my book is about personal growth and development. Now, I did it with wives in mind, but what's impactful for me is I am finding so many people outside of marriage relationships who find value in it as well. So that's what inspired me. And that's the deposit that I intended to make through writing this book.
Wow. So powerful. So ladies, I see some comments. That's so good, because we have got to, those that are married and those that are unmarried, waiting for their Boaz, right? We've got to do the work that we need to do internally, because it's two whole people. I remember the first time I heard that, two whole people create the best relationship, not two halves, but two whole people. And that's what your book shares with us. Congratulations on I'm the Good Thing. Thank you for sharing with us. Dr. Peacock, it is your time to share. Tell us a little bit about your book, what you hope readers get from it, and then we'd love to hear an excerpt from your book.
Yes, I was so blessed by Tamara and Denise. I just wanted to keep hearing more. What a blessing. And to hear Denise's testimony of 21 years. Denise, I'm coming up on 42 years. Yes, wow. Amen. So God is good. God is good. And that is so
How long
needed.
did you spend researching before you actually started writing the book? Or was research a part of the process at all? Let's just talk about the concept of research. So Denise, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, so for me, researching wasn't as rich because of the context of the type of book that I've written. I will tell you though, what has resonated for me listening is what I've tried to do around the book is to create experiences more than just my own. So while the book is developmental and the book is trying to inspire growth within the context of helping a wife, what I do with that following that you guys were talking about is in the community that I've created is bring other experiences to bear. So just like you were saying, in the type of book that you wrote, you wanted to make sure your research was important up front to include it in. in the type of experience that I've built out, I bring that along for the living journey of it all. And so there's an element that I include as a part of the community where I bring in other wives who have experiences different than my own. For example, I haven't been a military wife. And so I can't write from that perspective. I haven't been a wife who had to be a caregiver alongside someone with long-term illness. So I bring those perspectives out through the community and through sharing and doing interviews with them. So the context and the format of my book is a little bit different because a lot of the personal growth and development that was shared was experientially of my own to make relation or relevant to the wives that are participating. But when you talk about that cohesive package that you and the guest before, I can't remember her name, it begins with an R though, that the two
Raquel.
of you, the two of you kind of talked about before, and how important that is, it lives on through the community that we've created to make sure it's important. So I think it's very important depending on your approach, but the approach of my book didn't have as much detailed research up front.
Got it. Well, thank you for sharing that though, and also sharing the way that you have incorporated it though into your community. So you're bringing along other people alongside you that can share different experiences, much like you guys are doing for the community that is out here today, so that they can hear different perspectives other than your own. So that's extremely valuable. So Denise, what are your thoughts? How did you manage it? You've got a lot going on too. How did you manage the time commitment? What did it look like for you?
Well, for me, it seems like I have my inspirations early in the morning. It's so funny because when I first started on this journey, my husband was working long hours, so I was home alone, and we're empty nesters. So we have two girls, but they're in college, they're young adults. And so I would wake up at the 3-4 o'clock in the morning and I would be sitting there writing. So when he came home and he would see me up in the bed, he's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, no, I'm in the zone. So for me, it's whenever that inspiration comes, I like get in the zone of it. And it could be anything that inspires me. It could be something I've read, something I've seen, something I'm reminded of. That brings that inspiration along, and I have to get it out. Now, I will say that in recent days, as my schedule kicked back in and I got back into the groove of a lot of different things, I am leveraging notes on my phone to capture some thoughts that I go back to. And I'm leveraging the voice recorder now to do some things as well, to try to leverage those tools to take advantage of how do I not lose the thought, because I've had that happen and it's so discouraging. Like you think you're going to remember, but you don't. And so it's so important to capture it some kind of way. When that inspiration, to your point, Coach Tam, when that download comes, it's precious. So just stop and catch it and do it in a way that you can go back to it. But for me, it was early morning writing, and it's still that now. I'll wake up and I just hit that zone and I can just pound it out and really feel accomplished when I get done with it. But, if I had the time block, it probably would be 4 a.m. So.
Yeah.
It probably would be very early. I'm an early riser. That's the best part of my day.
How you publish, was it self-publishing, was it traditional publishing, and why you chose that route? Okay, and I'm going to actually start with you, Denise. Talk to us about the route you chose and why you chose it.
So I went the self-publishing route, and mainly because I'll tell you, this entire path for me has been divinely inspired, and I felt like my steps were just kind of ordered through this whole process. And so it did not feel like complicated work to me. Mainly because probably professionally what I do, from managing projects and managing program launches and those type of things, it was a reasonable fit. So I wasn't necessarily out of my element. And I had really good resources around me to tap into for book cover design. Like my really good friend, her son is a digital artist. And so I worked with him directly. And I used a lot of things that I liked and saw to kind of inspire what I wanted to see as the end result. And so for me, I kind of walked through that process. Now I'm curious, since I hear there's 51 steps, I think I might have skipped a few. So I'm curious about learning those 51 steps, because I may have some redo to do on something that I might have skipped over or glossed over. But we were able to get to the finish line, and self-publishing was a choice. In fact, I honestly never even considered anything else. So it wasn't, like I sat at the table and said, oh, what do I want to do? It was like, it was just kind of ordered, do this, do this, do this, and was able to bring it to life that way.
The process of actually writing your book, because this is one that it's very easy to get hung up on. Did you use an outline or not? And if you didn't, what did you do? Let me start with Denise. Let me start with you.
So the only outline that I used was how I formatted each of the days. Because one of the things you just talked about, which is incorporated in my book, is it's more than writing. It's the workbook that comes along, all packaged together. And I found a book that I really enjoyed how it was formatted in terms of, with the reading and the affirmation and the elements of a workbook, meaning the reflection and the goal setting. And so I knew that I wanted to follow that format. Now, in terms of topics, it was not outlined that way, because each of those topics or each of those days were inspired from the writing that had happened, right? And so I came along and coupled with it the format based on the writing. But I do want to dovetail on something that you just talked about, which is creating that holistic service, right? Which the coaching element is very, very important. And that's why, Dr. Peacock has a workbook. That's why Tamara has a workbook, because that application is very key in how you can drive to that transformation. And that's where that lasting impact comes. And so figuring out more than just writing a book, it has to be formatted along the vision of transformation, like you're saying, because that's going to make the real difference in your reader. And so you got to think about that entire approach when you talk about outline. How are they going to stay connected? How are you going to foster that growth and development? And coaching is a real big aspect that I'm starting to do now. So I think that is extremely important, is to think about the comprehensive vision for your work more than just, I published this book, right? Because the recommendations and the referrals that are going to come about from the transformation that occurs in the people who are experiencing what you've put together.
Yeah, I love that. That is huge. It takes a collective effort to create that transformation. What is your take? What is the common mistake that you see authors make? And we got to be quick, because I got to get one more question in. Denise, what is your thought?
So for me, my biggest struggle wasn't the writing process. It's when I got to the end and we were faced with everything we're faced with now, and really having courage to go over, right? The questioning began for me was, is anybody going to buy it? Is, like all of that came at the end, right? When all the hard work was done, and I have this sample here, and I'm like, our economic conditions have changed, and like I'm all in my head about it. And I'll just share this thing that was shared with me when I started swirling. It says you should not be left alone in your own mind without adult supervision. And because I was all over the place, right? And so in that moment, I had to check myself. And it's back to what you're saying, my obedience. God, it's God's job to bless it. It's my job to be obedient. And so I had to really pull myself back in and push myself over that finish line. And wherever we get stuck in the process, we have to remember that it's the diligence to get to the end that's the most important, regardless of if that's the beginning, the middle. And so to me, my biggest struggle was the finish line. And it really was driven from all the conditions we're facing right now.
I love that. I love that. Denise, let me go to you. What do you wish you knew?
My original one was Tamara's, but here's the one I will say. It's very necessary. Whatever it is, if God is inspiring you to do it, he needs it released in the earth realm because somebody needs it. And so whatever your work is, whatever he has inspired you to do, it is very necessary. And don't give up until it reaches even that one that needs it. And so it just, it's easier than you think. I have to echo what Tamara said, but it is very necessary. So don't give up.
That's right. Family, it's not just let me say that again. It's not optional. I know it feels optional, but if you are called to write, Dr. Peacock could probably talk about this all day. There's only two choices, obedience or disobedience, right? If you are called to write, there is a reason for you to write. There is someone that needs to hear that story, whether, as Denise said, it's 1 or 1,000 or 1 million. You don't get to control the outcomes. What you get to control is your choice to accept the call. And when we don't accept the call, then people miss out because they are waiting on the story. Their deliverance, they're waiting on you, but you also miss out on an opportunity to join God where he is working. And when you join God where he is working, he does amazing things in your life. So don't miss an opportunity to be a vessel.